Hello everyone, I'm MTG Loreseeker, and this is a video I wanted to do much earlier, a few hours ago, but I just didn't have the time to do it. So, earlier today, Wizards of the Coast released they made several announcements today. There was a live stream, I think, where they released an announcement for several new sets. There was a released trailer for Zendikar Rising. There were announcements for many new reprints coming up, such as expeditions that will be in Zendikar Rising, some new Secret Lair stuff, etc. And, of course, all the cards we hope to see in the new sets. But that's not the kind of stuff I want to talk about here today on this little video. This is I don't want to say this is, a discussion video. It's definitely unscripted. I just want to chat quick about what I think about the upcoming sets, the trailer, and some of the things I heard. So, I guess I should... Point of order, I want to talk about the Zendikar Rising trailer, which should be playing over this video. I want to talk about the announcement that we will be returning, apparently, to weekly stories. I want to talk about the new sets that we should be seeing next year. Call Time, Strix Haven, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, and Innistrad Werewolves and Innistrad Vampires. With that said, let's try and stop saying With that said, let's begin with the Zendikar Rising trailer. Now, this trailer, it's about 4 minutes long. I thought it was really good, really well edited, and all that jazz. Nice visuals. It follows a quick story of Nahiri and her two accomplices, another core who is Akiri, and a merfolk dude with a stick, going into a temple, a Hedron temple, on Zendikar, and retrieving the beacon of Meridia. It's a big old glowy purple rock. The moment Nahiri touches the rock, the temple starts collapsing, and they have to get out of Dodge. They are chased by some crazy elemental creature. Nahiri vaporizes it using Meridia's beacon, and then she throws Akiri off a cliff. Interesting. It definitely showcases Nahiri as a deeply unhinged individual still. There's definite tones of her believing she's doing the right thing, no matter the cost. But I do have two problems with the trailer. And I suppose one overarching problem is just the CGI itself. I'm glad that the stupid pop music from the... what was it? Ikoria, that was it. Tipping my tongue for a while. I'm glad that the pop music from the Ikoria trailer is gone. But the facial expressions, I want to talk about that quick. When Akiri sees her friend is dead, she runs over to check his corpse, and there is no facial reaction whatsoever. It's just a deadpan look on her eyes. And then when she's arguing with Nahiri a few seconds later, it's the same thing. Nahiri and Akiri both have just these dead, zoned out looks in their eyes. No facial emotion whatsoever. And it really took me out of the trailer for a few seconds. And I don't know. Just don't do that. Animate your characters to show emotion, I suppose. Aside from that, trailer was good. I hope that the story of Zendikar Rising picks up after that, showing kind of what Nahiri plans to do with the rock. And about the rock, I want to talk about that quick. I talked with a few friends on Discord, Facebook, etc. Some people on Twitter too. I messaged and drink water there quick. I have a theory about it. I think that purple rock is some kind of battery for the Hedron network. And by that I mean, I think it's connected to the Royal, especially with how the Elemental so quickly tried to get a hold of it after Nahiri grabbed it. As you may or may not know, the Royal on Zendikar is kind of a natural response to the Eldrazi. The wild mana of the plane kind of had a knee-jerk reaction, creating all kinds of insane, elementals, crazy landmasses, all that jazz. The world itself would fight against the Eldrazi. And what I think the purple rock is that it has some kind of connection to the wild mana of Zendikar itself. So Ugin, Sorin, and Nahiri, when they were setting up the Hedron network, I think they took that rock to use as kind of a power source for the Hedron network. Now, how right I am about that, of course, remains to be seen, hopefully in this story, which is a good segue to the next thing I want to talk about. The story is supposed to be returning. The weekly stories, the weekly MTG, Uncharted Realms, which was a weekly column article associated. It would accompany most major set releases for the standard legal sets, and it's how for over 5 years, it's how most people got to experience the Magic the Gathering story, and then it was suddenly cut off right before War of the Spark, and then just died. It just stopped happening right around that time. I did seriously miss the weekly MTG stories, and if they're actually coming back, I'm super excited. I hope they're good, but mostly I'm just excited to see their return. Because even if they're bad, and a few of the old ones were bad, even if they're bad, we're still getting story, we're still learning more about the setting and the characters and what's actually happening, rather than with, Theros Beyond Death, where the entire story is given a few paragraphs, which I hated. Alright, so next up, I want to talk about the new sets. So a lot of new sets were announced. First up is Kaldheim, then Strix Haven, School of Mages, Dungeons & Dragons, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, 2 Innistrad sets, I think, Innistrad Werewolves and Innistrad Vampires, as well as Time Spiral Remastered and Modern Horizons 2. Now, Time Spiral Remastered sounds like it's just a reprint set, and we don't know anything about Modern Horizons 2, so I'm going to go ahead and ignore that. Let's talk about Kaldheim. A lot of people are excited to go to Kaldheim. It's a plane that has been heavily requested by pretty much everyone who was aware of it for the longest time. Kaldheim is the Nordic Viking-inspired plane. We've gotten glimpses of it before back in, I want to say, Duels of the Planeswalkers 2013? Maybe? Probably. I hope I'm right about that. It's the world where Chandra tracked Ramaz to in order to beat the crap out of him. And if you don't know who Ramaz is, that's fine. Wizards of the Coast seems to have forgotten about him. He was a crazy shaman planeswalker servant of Nicobolas who showed up for Duels of the Planeswalkers and then was never seen again. Ah, delicious water. Kaldheim being a Nordic Viking-inspired plane is something a lot of people have been having an interest in. I'm curious to see how Wizards of the Coast interprets Vikings for their setting. I mean, are there going to be crazy magic druids? Are the gods going to be there? Are there going to be mirrors of the Norse gods? Thor, Odin, Loki, the Valkyries, all that jazz. And how faithful will they be to the culture that they're borrowing from? And I'm hoping they'll be really faithful. I mean, with Amonkhet, they were, they clearly seemed to try their best to be as faithful to the culture and the mythos as possible, while also giving it its own magic spin. So, I'm hoping that they do the same for Kaldheim and keep it kind of true to form while also giving it a Magic the Gathering feel. Now, next up is Strix Haven, the School of Mages, according to Wizards, the most elite university in the multiverse. So, Urza, eat your heart out. This is clearly a nod to Harry Potter, in my opinion. We're most likely going to be having a huge Harry Potter analogy set. That's what I think this is going to be. It's going to be to Harry Potter what Innistrad was to classic horror. Just a big old hoorah of references, direct analogies, and all that jazz. We're going to have a legendary not Harry Potter, a legendary not Voldemort, all that jazz. Also, interesting thing to note, I believe that this is the world Kasmina is from. If you forgot about her, don't worry, I don't think she shows up in any story aside from a few blurbs. Kasmina is a planeswalker from War of the Spark. She was the uncommon mono-blue planeswalker, and her title is Kasmina Enigmatic Mentor. And she creates wizard tokens, I believe. I hope I'm right about that. I believe that... what is it? Strix Haven? I believe Strix Haven is her home plane. The magic school is where she teaches at. So I'm excited to see more of her if that's the case. Of course, we're going to learn more about it as we get closer to the release of the set. But that's not the set I should be talking the most about. No. The set I should be talking about most is Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Alright, so let's get this out of the way. This set is going to be taking the place of 2021's core set. I believe that's what Wizards said. Now, I am not a fan of the Forgotten Realms setting. I don't enjoy it. I have a lot of problems with it, just as a, kind of casual fan of D&D settings. There's better settings, in my opinion. There's Eberron, Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Dark Sun. Isn't that a setting? I only remember a bit of it. I don't like Dritz Do'Urden. I don't like any of his buddies. I don't like most of the stories I've read for Forgotten Realms. I know I'm probably a minority in this, I'm sure that it's a very popular setting because Wizards keeps going back to it, and they would never do something that isn't popular, right? But I think it was inevitable that a D&D Magic the Gathering set was going to happen. That's the kind of thing that I just kind of think was naturally gonna happen, especially when D&D kept getting more and more Magic books. There's been 2 Magic books now, one for Ravnica and one for Theros. It was kind of inevitable that we would get more D&D cards in Magic the Gathering. More water. Do I think the set will be handled well? I want to hope it is, but there's a lot of story implications here, This means that we are likely going to be getting cards for each of the major Forgotten Realms gods, and don't ask me to name them, I couldn't if I tried. We're probably going to get cards. We're probably going to get a card for Dritz Do'Urden, and it's probably going to be bullshit OP, probably the next Oko. But more to the point, in Forgotten Realms, and really all D&D, if you're a good enough wizard, you can travel between worlds, between planes, which undermines the point of planeswalkers in a setting where the worlds are otherwise cut off from one another. If we go to Forgotten Realms, I think it would cheapen the effect of planeswalkers in the setting. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest fan of planeswalkers right now. I believe that they invalidate the point of visiting multiple settings. Since we learn less and less about the worlds and the characters, and it's more focused on planeswalkers and their point of views, I think it kind of cheapens the settings. But the ability for any skilled enough wizard to just cast a spell and go to another world cheapens the cheapening, I suppose, is the way to phrase it. You know, Elminster can just cast Gate and go to Innistrad now, if these share a setting. That would be interesting. Now, how I think it's going to work is Wizards will be smart and say the Forgotten Realms setting is like Theros, where the individual realms connected to it are all part of one big plane. Or like Phyrexia, where original OG Phyrexia was made up of multiple overlapping planes, 9 to be specific. And Theros had 3 planes: Theros itself, Nyx, and the Underworld. I'm very excited for Kaldheim because it's a set that we've been looking forward to for a while. I think it's going to be done well. I hope it's going to be done well. I'm kind of excited for Strix Haven because we'll get to learn more about Kasmina, hopefully, and I'm like 99.99% sure that the next crossover cards are going to come here in the form of Harry Potter themed crossover cards, which would be certainly very interesting. You know, like how we got the Godzilla ones in Ikoria. So instead of Godzilla, it's Harry Potter and his crazy gang of buddies. I'm excited for those sets. I'm interested in the story we're going to get as we go there. I'm interested in the characters we'll meet. I'm interested in the cards we'll see. I'm really not that excited for Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. And it's not just because I'm not a fan of the Forgotten Realms. I'm just not anticipating the effect, the implications of us going there will be for the Magic setting as a whole. There are a lot of characters in the Forgotten Realms that could just casually step over most Magic the Gathering characters we've encountered. You know, not just the gods, not just the demigods, not just Elminster, just high-level characters in the Forgotten Realms are insane. They can do all kinds of reality warping bullshit if they're a powerful enough wizard. It's nuts. So, you know, I'm not exactly an expert on the Forgotten Realms. I haven't read a story or looked at a novel for the setting in, like, I want to say, going on 14 years now. Whenever it was that 4th edition came out is when I jumped ship completely and switched over to Pathfinder, but I know it's been a while, but, you know, last I checked, the Forgotten Realms was a hot mess of a setting where all kinds of kitchen sink shenanigans went down, and the high end was dumb. So, those are my thoughts on those sets. As for Innistrad, you know, we know their titles. We're going to Innistrad twice. One set is going to be focused on vampires. The other one's going to be focused on werewolves. I'm curious to see how Sorin is doing. I'm curious to see how the world is doing with Avacyn gone and the Eldrazi imprisoned. But that's a thought for later, since that's almost a whole year away. So to recap my thoughts so far, I'm excited for Zendikar Rising, more so than I was a week ago, because if we are getting a return to weekly stories, then that means that we're going to be exploring Zendikar with the characters rather than in one big summary at the end of the spoiler season. I'm excited for the return to stories. I'm excited for the new planes we're going to next year rather than just returning to old ones. So, I don't know. I'm hopeful. It looks like the story is going up right now, as opposed to pitfalling into nothingness like it was the last year. Alright, those are my stories. I know that this was a weird offset video. I really was kind of debating whether to do it at all or not, you know, since I think I do best when I'm working with a script. But you tell me what you think. Would you like to hear more of my just rambly, unscripted thoughts, or would you like me to stick to writing things out beforehand and getting a cohesive story for you all? You let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this far. You guys have a great day, and I will see you next time.